Good morning everyone, welcome back to, session 2 of Baycroft Learn. Just as a very quick reminder on how this is going to work before we jump in, we are going to use this essentially as revision. So the first session on this was around ratio, simplifying ratio and sharing into a ratio. We're going to add a couple of questions about that topic as well in terms of the work content. If you need to remind yourselves on how to actually carry that work out, go back to the first video and refresh yourselves and then complete those questions, because otherwise there's not a lot of point in doing this. Essentially what we're looking to do is keep our memories refreshed on the things that we're going to need going forwards, okay? So there's not a lot of point in doing something 1 week, parking it and then moving on. So we're going to use this essentially as just a constant refresh. Sometimes we'll include ratio again, sometimes we won't. We'll keep you guessing. But anyway, this week's topic is going to be about something that we've only just reminded ourselves about because we first learnt this in year 10, which is HCF and LCM. What does HCF stand for? Highest common factor. Very good. What does LCM stand for? No, it's not lowest common multiple, that's just what I call it. It's actually least common multiple, but the language of that makes no sense to me, so I call it lowest common multiple, okay? Now these are two that I just want to refresh ourselves on what we mean between the difference between simple and easy. The idea and concept of these is quite simple, but that doesn't mean that it's easy. So I'm just saying apologies in advance if I start using terms that might wrong-foot you a little bit if I talk about the word simple. That doesn't mean it's easy. An example is, we know that 2 times 2 is both simple and easy. 836 times 222 is still simple in that it's multiplying, but it's a long way from easy. Okay, so these are fairly simple concepts, but they can be quite tricky, okay? So we need to follow a process, and I've got my examples to go through here. So, highest common factor first of all. Again, what we want to do is follow a process. So when we find the factors of a number, factors of course being 2 numbers that multiply together to give us another number, what we need to do is a process which makes sure that we capture all of them. So if I wanted to find all of the factors of 20, well I know that 2 times 10 will work, but that doesn't mean that I call all of them. So we want to follow a process. And the process that I always ask you to follow is this. Work our way through the times tables. 1 and 20 are both factors of 20. What's the next number I'm going to put on the board? Good, 2. 2 times what? 10. 3 times doesn't work, so we can cross that one off. 4 times 5. 5 times 4. Now what we've got there is a repeat, which tells us that we are done. So we can cross off the repeat, and we know that our factors are 1, 2, 4, 5, 10, and 20. Now, that's great, but we're GCSE students, so we need to make it a little bit more complicated than that. So what we're looking for is the highest common factor. In other words, the biggest number that appears in 2 different lists. Okay, so let's look for the highest common factor of 16 and 24. What's the first number I'm going to write on the board? It's going to be 1, because I need to find 1 times 16. 2 times 8. 3 times, doesn't work, cross that off. 4 times 4. This is a double, we're finished, we're done. So our factors are 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. Write them out in a single line. Then we're going to do the same for 24. 1 times 24. 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6, 5 times doesn't work, and then the next one is 6 times 4, which is a duplicate, it's a double, so we can stop. And then we've got all of our factors. What we now need to do And unfortunately, I haven't left myself room here, but what I would suggest you do is write all of the numbers out at the bottom and then find the biggest number that appears in both lists. In this particular instance, Mr. Mitchell, what can we see?
I would say an 8.
An 8. I would agree. So that is our highest common factor. Okay, you will also get, let's just skip on from there, you'll also get sometimes lists of 3 separate numbers. So an example I've got here is 12, 15 and 18, which is doing exactly the same thing. Exactly the same. Now some of you are great at your times tables, okay? Some of you might be able to look at these and just be able to see straight away what the highest common factor is. But this is a bit like when we do column addition. We've got a method that we know works. Why wouldn't we stick to it just to make sure we get it correct? Okay? And also, we're going to pick up marks for showing our working out. This isn't all about our GCSEs, but it's really important that we understand how we're getting the most bang for our buck. You've put a lot of work in to get this far. Let's make sure we secure as many marks as we can. So that's highest common factor. LCM. This one's actually dead easy, okay? Because it's just our times tables. I call it lowest common multiple because I don't understand what least common multiple means. But we need to understand the language of both in case they do say least common multiple on a GCSE. But essentially, if we're looking for the least common multiple or lowest common multiple, you'll have 2 numbers, and you just need to write out your times tables until you find the lowest number that appears in both lists. So 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. And I'm going to stop there because I've run out of space. 6, 12, 18, ding, 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 ding. We've already found the lowest number that will appear on both of those lists. Sometimes it will take you longer, and if you don't find the lowest number thus far, just keep going and extending the list. Okay? Now that might seem a bit kind of pointless, but actually this underpins some other learning that we need to do on fractions, which we'll be coming on to within the next week or two, because again, it's another really important topic. So make sure that you do understand it, because there's some easy marks to be picked up by doing this. The difficulty is this: you will get questions like this in your GCSE, but those pesky people at GCSE will make this much tougher by putting lots and lots and lots of words around it. What we're going to do, I'm going to ask Mr. Mitchell to put in some worded questions on both HCF and LCM. I would like you to give them a go. Haven't quite decided how we're going to make that work yet. We might give you an indication as to whether it's HCF or LCM, because the trick is recognising what the question is actually asking you to do. And then we are going to go through some worded questions when we do our revision session next Thursday. Okay? Mr. Mitchell, is there anything else that I needed to cover?
No, that's perfect.
Okay. Going to leave it with you. Please do take advantage of these opportunities. It's really going to pay off. As I say, you've got yourself this far. You owe it to yourselves to put in that final bit of effort, and we'll continue next week.